from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Jelle, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you. And hi there.
So good morning to everyone tuning in. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you're tuning in and this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the Practitioner Brief by CyberHub podcast. I'm James Azar, your host, your CISO. Joining me today, my guest, Jelle. Jelle, I'm not going to try to say your last name because every time I do, I make it sound absolutely horrible. But Jelle's with KnowBe4. He's the security evangelist over at KnowBe4 in one of my favorite places in all of Europe, in the Netherlands. Like, if you have not been,
it's a great place. Let's face it. We're in a great country over here.
Yes, it's one of my favorite places to be in when I'm in Europe. It really is. I'm not just saying it because you're on the show.
I know it's one of your favorite places. So
people know I love Amsterdam. I love Rotterdam. I love just The Hague. I love the people. By the way,
it's a fun place to be.
Like, I'm such an Amsterdam spirit too, right? Like, when I was in Tel Aviv last week, right? I'm on a bike or a scooter riding around town. I don't know what a car is, right? I don't care for cars. Like, that's the same way in Amsterdam. Like, very few people live in Amsterdam and actually have cars.
They've got a bike. That's it. We bicycle everywhere. That's what we do.
You got a good morning from our mutual friend.
Hey, good morning, James.
Who, by the way, Jelle and I have a really funny story with James McQuiggan, right? So the first time I met Jelle was pre-COVID. Right, it was like the weeks before the lockdown. We were at RSA. It was the last day of RSA, and we were at the bookstore. And dude, you are tall, by the way. Like, you're like what, 6'4"?
Yeah, I am 6'4". Yeah. Well, hello. I'm Dutch. In the Netherlands, I'm not tall at all. Everybody here is tall, so that's nothing special. But yeah, when I'm abroad, I fly around a lot. When I'm abroad, it's easy. I don't have to duck. I can reach everything. I can look over everybody's heads and see everything. The only downside is airplanes. They don't make airplanes big enough for me.
No. Heather Lane says, you have a guest. Good morning. Good morning, Heather. We missed you. You kind of dropped off the clubhouse room that James and I were doing before we started the show today. Dumb passwords, is that an oxymoron? It kind of is. We'll talk a little bit about that. And good morning to the legendary Matt Lee. And James recalls the same thing. I actually got a reminder on my phone earlier this year of that picture of the three of us together.
Oh, send it to me. I don't have it anymore.
So I will have to email it to you and James.
Yes, please.
So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This is not a reminiscent show. We want to wrap up this week. We've got a lot of great stories to talk about from a cyber perspective that we want to bring to your attention, keep you informed. Jelle's joining me today to help provide some of his knowledge, because Lord knows I don't know everything, but I'm glad there's people like Jelle around who can help me know more about the stuff we're dealing with. For those of us that live in the greatest country on earth, which is these United States of America, before we get started, though, hang on, time out. Shout out to KnowBe4 for sponsoring today's episode. Jelle, you know me, man. I'm an espresso guy just like you.
There we go.
So whatever you guys are drinking.
That's cool. I do too.
Yeah.
That way you can see what you're drinking. I like that.
Well, that's the only way you can drink an espresso. You can't drink an espresso if it's not clear.
Finally, somebody that understands.
Yeah, if it's not clear, it doesn't work. Good morning to Roger, and whatever you're drinking this morning, Roger, make it, something good, delicious, and caffeinated. By the way, I'm so happy I got like Nespresso capsules in Israel.
Oh, why? They better than over in the States?
Yeah, so I got these Nespresso capsules that are essentially packed by a local coffee, and then you freeze them because it's actual real coffee inside, no preservatives, no nothing. So you got to freeze them. So my whole basement, my whole studio area smells like coffee because the capsules, once I bring 2 or 3 of them out for the day, they just smell like coffee. They make the whole place smell like coffee.
Okay. Well, next time you're over here in the Netherlands, we'll get you some Nespresso coffee. We've got plenty of that.
I know, but I don't like Nespresso capsules. I like local coffee makers who make coffee.
Yeah, but you can put those in your Nespresso cups, so
Yeah.
you can get those. That works.
Yeah, I love it. All right, folks. So let's get right into today's stories. We've got 5 of them to cover, including this one right here, where right now going on in the world is the madness that was supposed to happen last summer, but because of COVID got postponed, and now it's on this summer. It's called the Euro 2020, even though it's 2021. It's, by the way, it's so confusing, right? Because they put Euro 2020, even though it's 2021. But UEFA was too cheap to go switch all the vests for all the players and all the branding. So everyone's still wearing, Euro 2020. And you're like, but it's 2021.
Well, it's soccer. As long as we can enjoy the sport.
Well, the sport we are enjoying, and it's been a magnificent tournament. Netherlands, I think you guys beat the Ukraine 3-2 a few days ago.
We did.
In a great game. But it's also brought up a dumb password problem, where according to a report here by Lisa Voss of Threadpost, the top easy-to-crack football-inspired passwords in the database of 1 billion unique clear text breach passwords, you probably guessed it, is football. So the European Soccer Championship is live. It's going on right now. It's called the Euros. And it's brought in an easy-to-crack password, kind of like football. And Rock You 2021.
Yep.
And there is more. Not all of the 8.4 billion entries in the 100 gigabyte Rock You 2021 list were breached passwords. Have I been Pawn Creator and the awesome Troy Hunt pointed out at the time that they're still useful for cracking. The list is about 14 times larger than what's in the Pond password because the vast majority of it isn't passwords, he tweeted. Football-related passwords. Here's the top football terms. Football, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Barcelona. And those account for 1,136,155 occurrences there. Bradford says football 1, 2, 3, 4. McQuiggan has brought up football with zeros and at and the number 1. Football and with the combinations are endless, or football 1 exclamation point 1, 2, 3 are all possible variations of football. A lot of reused passwords. What do you what do you make of it, Jelle?
Look, it's the age-old problem. It's passwords. Will we ever learn? Now, no, we won't. That's true. Okay. Well, next topic. No, I get that you would pick something that's easy to remember, something that you love. I get that. If you're a user, you don't want complex, long passwords. But football, that's a bit too easy. That's like, So I like it. You stopped it right at the title. At least make it football and then number of characters. Yeah, that's even better. But then people are not going to remember that. But make it a sentence or something. Make it, I love football, whatever. Make it add some complexity at least. That's the thing that keeps amazing me is, and when I talk to customers or partners, I'm like, what does it take for you to get it? Use a password manager. They're free. It's so easy to do. And every year, it doesn't matter. Next, it'll be, I don't know, a major tennis tournament. And everybody will start using tennis. Well, even a worse password.
Well, next year, we have the Olympics.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, I'll pick Tokyo because nobody's going to suspect that one.
So, sorry, the Olympics are this year. Next year, we have the World Cup. The World Cup in Qatar is next year.
So basically, you can keep soccer or you can keep football. Yeah, you don't have to change it. You can
you don't have to change it.
I don't know. It's I sometimes read things about passwordless passwordless systems and stuff like that, and people for the next couple of decades will keep using passwords. I truly believe that. So we'll see this sort of articles pop up every couple of years. It's a good laugh in the end until somebody gets breached and something serious happens.
Yeah, I don't find that to be a laughing matter, but nonetheless, we did a Clubhouse room this morning, and we were, James McQuiggan brought up the whole thing around passwords, and as I was getting ready for the show, I was like, oh, look, the first story, it's like James McQuiggan and I open our mornings the same way, and there's the story. So none of that. Roger brings up a good point here, which is quit calling in passwords, mentally adjusted passphrase.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Galatsavion says and Matt Lee talks rocku.txt for the file. You guys should go really check it out. I want to move to the next story here. Security flaw found in the 2G mobile data encryption standard. So you guys are probably go like, why does that matter?
Well, it's still used in a lot of countries. Yeah. If you don't have coverage in a country, GPRS is still one of the main ways to communicate, one of the main protocols. So it does matter. It simply, that's it. Even here in Europe.
Yeah. It still does matter. Even in the States, there are places where we travel to that have very limited reception. You could be driving on a lonely highway out in the country somewhere. You're falling back to GPRS. Now that we know that the encryption, it actually has a back door to it and that the data can be intercepted, that should be something to keep in mind, and maybe even disabling it on your phone could be an option if you're concerned about it. A few more comments here. James McQuiggan says the entropy of football is 2.73. And Matt Lee says passwordless for the win. Microsoft has a very interesting story about that as well on ZDNet. I just didn't have time to cover it.
Yeah, we're getting Microsoft Windows Hello thing.
Yeah, the Windows Hello thing, which I have a problem with biometrics, but we won't get into that on this stream. I don't think we have enough time. So, Kaspersky threat hunters detail an Iranian domestic cyber surveillance operation. The folks over at Kaspersky are sounding a warning alarm over an Iranian APT actor that's been silently conducting domestic cyber surveillance operations for the last 6 years. The newly discovered APT, which Kaspersky calls Voracious Kitten. You ever notice that all Iranian APTs are all kittens? I don't know if that's like in the Ayatollah's face, like, ha ha ha, you think you're scary, but really you're a kitty cat. You're like a kitten, good kitten, right? Like, I don't know if that's just a jab at the Ayatollahs.
I know, wasn't CrowdStrike the one that started labeling all those countries and the different parties with animals? Like, we've got bear in Russia and tiger in China. Isn't that something that came from them?
I don't know, but can we all just agree to give them all one name? Because if I see another story and someone calls them something else, I'm, gonna go that. Christopher Joseph, good morning. Thank you for joining us. He goes, here, kitty, kitty. Yeah. I'll take that. So in the newly discovered APT, which has been operating since 2015, is trying to hijack Telegram and Chrome installations to deploy malicious payload. They said they've observed signs that Android implants have been used to target mobile users in Iran. This is significant simply because now they are spying over their own individuals within Iran. Telegram, an encrypted app that provides free communication between individuals, specifically in a place like Iran, which is known to, we are in Pride Month. So for those that want to talk a little bit about, the progress we've made in the West around Pride, in Iran, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, they still hang you or throw you off the roof of a building to this day. So if you're in the LGBTQ community and you decide that you want to communicate, and now they find it, you can be arrested and you can be killed for it. So keeping that in mind, this is showing you how they do that. By the way, something similar to this I covered about 2 months ago, where Iran was training Hezbollah in Lebanon to do the same thing. So now we're seeing that initial report that came out of Clear Sky in Israel and this report from Kaspersky has a big cyber R&D center in Israel. So it seems like, those two centers are coming together now, and you're starting to see a little bit of that watch. It seems like the tools that they're teaching Hezbollah are in play by Voracious Kitten or Ferocious Kitten, whatever they call it.
And you think it's the same toolkit?
It seems like it, because in Lebanon, they're designed to spy over telecom networks and telecom apps that Lebanese people are using.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think this actually is a pretty scary thing, because Telegram, a lot of people flock to Telegram with WhatsApp not being popular anymore. So knowing that Telegram can be breached, that it's not as secure as they tell you to, or tell you it is, that's scary
but
thing.
this is only being done on Android. Right?
Still,
that's very critical. It's only being done on Android. If you're on Telegram on OS, that's not happening, because you can't change the app. You can't put in payloads onto an OS device. It's much harder. It's not that you can't do it. It's much more difficult. But on Android, it's the wild, wild west.
yeah, okay, but there's so many Android users out there that use Telegram as well. So it's still a danger. It's not everybody's going to change their Android phone for an iPhone just because of this, because most people will not understand what the implications are. So I think this is a scary thing.
Well, it also, if you're doing business in Iran, or if you're doing business with people within Iran and you use Telegram to communicate with them, just understand that that entire set of communications is
It's up for grabs.
It's up for grabs. Yeah, and these guys are watching it, and they're also targeting Google's Chrome's browser using the bits utility and code to modify the Chrome shortcut to launch malware whenever the victim runs the browser. So essentially spying on all of your internet activities. Again, some really concerning stuff for the privacy of people with APTs now being essentially, that just shows you that every APT in Iran works for the Ayatollahs. There's no lone wolves there. There was a conversation we had yesterday on the Tech Town Square last night, where we said that every single APT that operates within Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea is essentially government run. There's no bad actors, that are just sitting there. You're part of the government infrastructure.
Yeah, whether you work for the government or are hired by the government, I believe that, yeah.
I want to move to the next story, which is the Molerats hackers are returning with new attacks targeting the Middle Eastern governments. So a Middle Eastern advanced persistent group has resurfaced after a 2-month hiatus to target government institutions in the Middle East and global government entities associated with geopolitics in the region, and a rash of new campaigns observed this month. The proof point attributed the activity to a politically motivated threat actor it tracks as TA402 and known by other monikers such as Molerats or Gaza Hacker Team. The threat actor is believed to be active for about a decade, with a history of striking organizations primarily located in Israel and Palestine, and spanning multiple verticals such as tech, telecom, finance, academia, military, media, and governments. The latest wave of attack commenced with a spear phishing email written in Arabic and containing PDF attachments that come embedded with a malicious geofence URL to selectively direct victims to a password-protected archive only if the source IP address belongs to the targeted country in the Middle East. Recipients who fall outside the target group are diverted to a benign DECA website, typically Arabic language news sites like El Akhbar or Al Jazeera. The password protection of the malicious archive and the geofence delivery method all come through as two easy anti-detection mechanisms that threat actors can use to bypass automatic analysis products. This is another threat emerging. Jelle, what's your take on this?
So they use the Dropbox API to deliver the payload.
Yep.
That's clever. If you're not in their target group, they just divert you to a benign website. That's clever. Yeah. These guys are really becoming clever. And that's worrying. And the Middle East is already, part of my region is the Middle East. They spend a lot of money on tech solutions, on security measures. They have budget. That's not the issue. So what they're looking at is, or cyber criminals are looking at, is how can we leverage that human factor? How can we go after that human? Yeah. And what you see in that area, that's still, their focus still is technology. So every time a social engineering attacks in the Middle East happens, it's very successful. That's just the way it is. And if they're clever like this, it's scary business. They camouflage their steps really well. They really know what they're doing. They're targeting a specific group. And
they're writing the emails in native Arabic, which to me, I saw some of the samples of the emails they're writing as someone who speaks and reads and writes Arabic. It's written in a very it's written by someone who knows Arabic. It's not
Oh.
someone using Google Translate to translate, let's say, something from Russian or Mandarin to the native language. It's written in a very acceptable, high-level Arabic language. So to me,
Okay.
that
And
was
then-
things that when I saw this story and I did some research on it, I was very impressed with the communication of the email. The email is very convincing.
Wow, I didn't know that. But so what do you think? Is it a Middle Eastern group?
I think it's either a Middle Eastern group, and they say TA402, but there's really no attribution to TA402, meaning they predominantly are around the geopolitics of the Israeli-Palestinian issues within that region. But I think they could be Turks. It wouldn't surprise me if it's derived from Turkey. Turkey has an interest in flaming the region right now because Turkey wants to be seen as a global mediator and player, and they want to get some legitimacy. They've been bypassed and kind of put to the side, and Erdogan has this, he's trying to revamp the Ottoman Empire. This also, the dates of TA402 to me date back to Erdogan's speech nearly 12 years ago when he rose to prominence in Turkey around the idea of making Turkey a geopolitical regional hub in the region.
Okay.
And given the rounds of fighting that have been going on between Israel and Palestine and the Abraham Accords, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being tracked back to Turkey.
Nation state. Crap. Okay, so it's I don't know. I haven't seen anything about what damage they've done with this. They've predicted the attack. Have you seen anything major in the media? I haven't yet.
No, and I don't think this is about damage. I think this is about espionage. I think what they're trying to get is what are these people talking about when it comes to Israel-Palestine? What are these governments talking about? They're targeting specific institutions, maybe specific universities or people within universities, government, and maybe industry around what that's being viewed as. And so they're trying to understand who they can use to influence either to their side or the other. That's why, to me, it keeps going back to Turkey, simply because Turkey tried to mediate the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas last month, and Israel essentially overwhelmingly told the Turks to go and F them themselves. They have no interest in Turkey being a mediator in the discussion, and gave the platform to the Egyptians. And the Egyptians were running the platform with essentially consultants and essentially intel chiefs from Saudi, the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, and other places. And Turkey wasn't even put on the table. The only people Turkey was talking to was Hamas. So, I mean, we're getting really geopolitical here, but this to me, looking at this is very, very, it's very, very fascinating. Simply because to me this seems Turk all the way through and through.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. Let's see if something more pops up in the news about this. It'd be interesting to read it, but
absolutely. We've got we're way over time here because you and I got just dragged into this conversation.
Yeah,
I want to finish this last story here where Ukraine arrests the Clop ransomware gang and seizes server in a joint operation between the Ukraine and the Koreans. If you see in the picture, the Korean National Police Agency, you also see the gentleman right here donning the Ukrainian prisoner vest. That is the walk of shame. The defendants faced up to 8 years in prison, and investigative actions continue. Based on the Ukrainian press release, it's not clear if the arrested individuals are affiliates or core members of the ransomware operations. There were law enforcement officers also from the US and Korea on this, a 3-country tirade, and prevailing a little bit of deterrence.
Well, the group made about 500 million in financial damages. That's they've done some damage out there, so that they're shut down. That's a good thing. And I think that the fact that Korea is actually working with Ukraine on this, that's new to me too. That's cool. I like it. I like those. If countries like them are working together on something like this, first of all, it's spanning multiple countries, so you need to. But it's a good initiative. We should do that more often. We don't collaborate enough.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see more and more collaboration, but it's awesome. David says the threat actors are good at shared information. Yes, they are. They're much better at it than we are, but we're starting to see, to me, every time we see a story like this, a video like this, it's deterrence. It's someone who's thinking about doing ransomware who goes, you know what? Maybe I'll just go be a pen tester.
Yeah, or just change your name of your group and restart as a new group. That happens too, unfortunately, but...
That sure does. Jelle, thanks so much for joining me on the show. Everyone who's watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. I know we went over, so I'm grateful that you guys all watched the show with us. I'll be back today at 11 a.m., a new CISO Talk episode with Max Crone, who's the head of security engineering over at Zoom. You don't want to miss it. On the CISO Talk podcast and on our YouTube channel, you can go and watch it. Max and I talk about encryption. We talk about security engineering. We go into a lot of depth on the topic. We talk a little bit about how Zoom adjusted early on in COVID with end-to-end encryption and what did that mean like, and how they implemented it and the whole process. A very fascinating story. You don't want to miss it. That's in about 90 minutes. If you go to the CISO Talk podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform or go to our YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe. You can catch that conversation. A Tech Corner tomorrow with my friends over from Ativa. Joseph Salazar and I talk about endpoint tomorrow. That's on Tech Corner. And then I'll be back again Monday with another practitioner brief. Until then, Jelle, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you to KnowBe4 and everyone watching. Thanks so much for taking the time to spend this morning with us. We'll be back with more then. Until then, folks, have a great rest of your day. Cheers and enjoy your weekend.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.